Technology is a game changer. It's providing access to opportunities, to connect, to broaden your network, to do things faster, do things more efficiently than a manual way of doing things. Research shows that a lot of women who start off careers in engineering and tech tend to drop out within the first 10 years, which means that when you look at the top levels in a lot of tech companies, engineering companies, you don't see very many women at all. Most of the world's poorest people tend to be women, and women who live in the rural areas. Now imagine that the world's population is almost 50-50, men and women. And so when you think about the fact that there are so many poor women on this earth, I mean, that definitely has a very strong effect. It means that women don't have access to, they're not financially empowered. They're not able to buy the things that they want to, either for themselves or for their families. It also means that they have less access to things like education, things that can actually lift them out of poverty. A lot of that is cut off for them, and that perpetuates a cycle. Women still carry a disproportionate amount of household responsibilities. So you find that already the playing field is not level, which may mean that if you're maybe a woman who is a mother, a wife, you have dependents, you may not be able to work maybe the same number of hours in the same way as a man would, even if he's a man who is married and has children, because there are different expectations of men and women. And so you find that a lot of the resources that are available stay within the same network of men, not just any men, usually men within a certain social strata, certain economic strata, and then the wealth is basically circulated in that network. So for it to come out to the general population and to women, it's really challenging. And then for young girls who are coming up and maybe they don't see women in those CEO roles. They don't see women, as presidents of countries, governors of countries. Maybe they may only see them as the vice presidents, the deputy governor, minister of women's affairs. That starts to shape their thinking that, okay, there are some opportunities that I as a girl will not be able to get. I will not have access to. This is as best as I can do. And it's nothing that someone will tell you. It's just from the experience of living and observing what is going on around you.
Inequalities are not sudden realities. They build up gradually in the ways that we choose to organize our lives and societies.
All stereotypes start from somewhere, and the deepest held stereotypes tend to be the ones that we grow up with, that we are raised with. So think about in your family, think about the ideas that prevailed in your family. So imagine, a boy and a girl growing up in a family, and the girl is always being called into the kitchen to cook, because as a girl, she has to be able to cook, for her family in the future, and no one wants to marry a woman who cannot cook. So very important for a woman to cook. Then the boys, will go and wash the car or fix the car, because it's believed that these are things that, men should know how to do. But I mean, those are life skills. Being able to cook and feed yourself is a life skill, which both men and women, should have. Same thing with fixing the car as well. Then let's think about in terms of toys and the kinds of things that we engage our children with. A lot of times girls are given dolls, they're given like kitchen sets, so they're already playing house, cooking, cleaning, looking after a house and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong if it's only the girls who are, being encouraged to think about, that aspect of life. Then boys, they get the very exciting toys like, cars and robots and science kits. They can put things together, they can take it apart, they can build something else. And so that love for like building things, using their hands, creativity, analysis, logic is already being developed in them, even though they don't realize it. So by the time you get to secondary school and you're now thinking about what you want to do in the future, boys who have grown up their whole lives developing their logic, their powers of reasoning, it's not far-fetched for them to think about, careers in engineering, architecture, science, related fields. What this means is that it really limits how far and how big and how wide a lot of women dream. A lot of these stereotypes are also imbibed by the women themselves and girls. So you find girls who may not consider opting for certain career choices because they feel that it's either too long, and by the time they graduate, all their peers will be married, they will be, the lone single person, accomplished but single. Or they may think that, these courses, it's just for guys. It's only guys I see who are studying this course. Am I going to be like a woman among men? My future husband won't like it. And imagine they're not even married yet. They may not even be dating someone, and they're already limiting their opportunities based on what their supposed future husband would think. And there's a lot of that really limits girls' ambition, because they think first of all about, the opportunity, the things they think is going to deny them of. They think about what people will say, and there is a lot that is related to that. What will people say? What will people think? And it's very, very crippling to girls and women.
Some of these stereotypes account for why we have low representation of women in science, tech, engineering, and maths.
So it's very important for women to be actively engaged in technology, because technology provides sets of processes, structure, framework for solving problems, for thinking about the world's problems and coming up with a solution, whether that's a product you can see or a more intangible solution. Generally speaking, a lot of us know about the gender gap in technology and wider STEM. And so how few women you have, operating in this space. And even when we look at the figures in terms of the numbers of students who are graduating from science and tech courses from Nigerian universities, it's quite a wide disparity. We have about 78% of science and engineering and technology graduates from Nigerian universities. As of about 2017, 78% were male graduates, meaning that the remaining 22% were women. So you're already starting from a place where it's a sharp disparity. Imagine a world where it's just men who are creating and building the solutions that both men and women are using. That's very biased. Men will not have women's experiences, so the solutions that they are building will maybe solve part of the problem, but there might be some issues that that women have that they don't fully address. So for example, we always look at the very first Apple Watch. The Apple Watch, a digital, it's a watch that can track different health indices, and it's meant to be like an all-round health tracker. But then one thing that the first version of the Apple Watch didn't have was it didn't have the ability to track periods. Now, men don't have periods, so probably, the team of people who are developing it didn't really think about that. And it's not like a malicious, intent, but it probably just didn't occur to them. It took the, female users to point out, like, this is something that it doesn't track. So it is important to have women, contributing towards creating, our products, the things that we're using, the things that are solving our problems, because these things are being used by men and women. In order to break the cycle, it needs to be intentional. It's not something that's just going to happen, just by the way. So you find that some countries will have quotas in terms of the number of women who need to be represented, or the percentage of women who need to be represented in governments, whether that's, government cabinets, the executive, legislative. A lot of companies who are breaking the mold also have to have quotas as well, to say that our board has to have this number of women, this number of men. It has to be intentional, because if it's not, then the status quo will persist. So that intention needs to be there. Over the last few years, there's been a greater awareness of this gender gap, and some of the reasons why we've had interventions that are looking at how to actually close this gap, to not only attract more girls and young women into this space, but to actually have them staying. Because it's one thing to come in, but it's another thing to actually stay and succeed.
For over a decade, Oreoluwa Leshi has been working to attract and increase female participation in tech.
I grew up in a home where both my parents were engineers, and my dad loved technology. So we always, playing around with some gadget or the other. He was always bringing home something new. We had a personal computer like in the early 80s. We were playing games. So we were quite comfortable around technology. But then it was really just like objects of curiosity and play. But it was after I finished secondary school and, like most of my peers, I went to computer school really to pass the time. And then that's where I really learned about technology. But I noticed, just how few women there were in that space. And I've always been someone who really thinks about women's lives. I think because I would see, lots of women growing up who just had to contend with so much. Even if they live the stereotypical professional women's lives, they still had to balance that with doing things in the home. Women just always seem to just be so busy and just have so much. I started thinking about how can technology make women's lives easier. So for my master's program, I decided to study information systems. So it was there, I now started looking at the research, and the research was just showing how few women, had access to computers, to the internet, could use computers, could use the internet, how few women there were working in technology-related spaces, in terms of policy, in terms of development, and I was wondering why?
Oreoluwa's answers to these questions brought about the establishment of Women's Technology Empowerment Center.
When we started WTech in 2008, we got a lot of curiosity. People would ask questions. They were very curious. So like, so what do you do? Hey, why just for women? Why just for girls? That was like, the recurring question we got. And, we'd explain, about the gender gap. And, some people would say, but if women are not in technology, it's because they don't want to be in technology. We've done a lot of awareness raising, we've done a lot of education. I would go to conferences, go to different places to talk about our work, why it's important, the reason why, why we're doing what we're doing, what this gender gap is all about, the things that have led up to it, stereotypes and things like that. I won't say that it's just because of WTech, but I think that WTech has done our own part in raising that awareness. And then as we have started running our programs, we're able to demonstrate the outcomes from our programs. So we have the girls, the women who have attended our programs, showcasing their skills. And so now we're in a space where if you ask people about the gender gap in technology, I think a lot of people will have an idea of what you're talking about. So our programs cut across training and mentorship. And then we work with girls and then women. So our first program is the She Creates Camp. We started that camp in 2008, the year of our inception. And it was, we visualized it as an intensive boot camp where girls who don't normally have access to computers, to technology, would come together, and in a short space of time, 2 weeks really, they would learn a lot, enough to really inspire them to want to continue learning more about technology. When we started the camp, the girls were basically learning how to use the computer, but now they're actually creating things. They're creating applications or mobile applications. They're building websites. They're learning about electronics. They're learning about robotics. They're learning about filmmaking. Each year has a theme. So we have a theme for each year. And so we build the curriculum around that theme. But in general, the girls are learning to create things in a fun way. It's always lots and lots of fun. Then we have the WTech Academy, which is our after-school technology club. One thing that we found with the camp was that it was fantastic at inspiring a love for technology in the girls, but it's only 2 weeks. And after that 2 weeks, what's then? The girls go back to their homes, back to their schools. Those who have access to computers, to the internet, can keep on learning, but those who don't can't, and that's where their learning stops. But with the academy, we are working with the girls in their schools. So we have sessions once a week, every week all through the academic year, so from September to June. So all through the year, we're able to keep working with them. So whether they have access to computers at home or not, they have access in their school. So at least they're able to use that. Out of that academy, we now got the idea for the mentorship program, which is called Mentor Her. So we found that, some of the girls really needed help. And so we came up with the idea of the mentorship program as a way where we could match each girl with a mentor. So someone who had ideally studied the course that they're studying now, or at least is working in the role that they aspire to work in. So the mentor can guide them in terms of, how best to navigate their university life, things that can boost their performance academically, and then maybe skills they can learn to prepare themselves for their future role. In the 13 years that we've been operational, at least we worked with over 31,000 girls and women across our different programs, alone and with partners. And so our data showed that 86% of our alumni have been inspired to study a science, technology or engineering related course. Then we have about 25% who have actually proceeded to studying a STEM course, because it's one thing to want to study, it's another thing to actually start studying the course. So we have about 25% who have actually started studying or have graduated from a STEM-related degree. We also count it as success if they're able to, for instance, make money from the skills they have. And so our follow-up also shows that about 56% of our alumni are making money using the skills they got from WTech.
WTech is already doing a lot to bring more women into tech. However, the future leaves room to do more.
The future for tech in Nigeria is really endless. I think that there's so much that we can do, so much that we've already started doing, and so much that we can still do. We want to imagine a future where we don't have to exist anymore because the problem we are trying to solve no longer exists. So we pray and we hope for a future, we work towards a future where the balance, the gender balance in tech is equitable, it's 50-50. And so in that case, there is no need to have to push girls, inspire girls, because girls will already be inspired, girls will already be in tech. But we know that, those things take time to happen, to manifest. So for us, we're going to remain focused on making sure that we're providing opportunities for young girls to become exposed to technology, not as consumers, but as creators.